Hello and welcome to episode 116 of the Yoga Life podcast. I'm your host, Kevin. And before I begin, thank you to everyone who left a review on Apple Podcasts. Yesterday I checked and we have 100 reviews. That's an average of 5 stars per review as well. So I say we, like the royal we, but it's just me. I am the creator, the host, the producer, the editor. I do everything. So it means a lot to me because sometimes I feel like I'm going mad up here in my loft talking to myself. But to know that you're listening or watching on the other end and you appreciate the work, the open, honest, unedited conversations means the world to me. So thank you so much. Today I have with me a very special guest, Helena Tubridy. Helena is a fertility expert. She has featured in national newspapers, the national radio. She's been on the TV, and she's currently making a documentary about, I won't spoil it, but it's about fertility. We're going to talk quite in detail about this topic, and I'm hoping to explore men's role in this tango, because it does take two to tango. So us fellas, what can we do to help the ladies out in making these babies? So it should be an interesting topic. Before we begin, let me say, if you'd like to practice yoga with me online, I have to throw in my little sponsor, then you can check out kevinboyleyoga.ie/membership. When you go to that page, you'll be able to see that I have an online platform which allows you to practice with me hour-long classes. We've got some half-an-hour classes in there. I just uploaded a 40-minute class. And also you can enjoy audio meditations, which range from 5 to 15 minutes. I've got a bunch of content uploaded there now, and I upload content every single week. So you just pay your €19 per month, you get a week free trial, and as that's going month by month, you get new content, no extra cost. Not bad, eh? So check that out. Any questions, comments about this podcast, this episode, please let me know. As always, if you enjoy it any stage, please share with a friend and maybe even leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Without further ado, here is Helena.
Fertility expert is my Twitter handle because Samantha Kelly, tweeting goddess, taught me all I know about Twitter and said, That's what you are. And I was kind of like, hang on a second. I may know a little bit and I may share a lot, but it's, the sense I've been doing this for over 30 years. I do know a fair bit, but I think that would be a stretch.
Is expert a bit strong?
Oh, I think it's a bit strong.
Okay, that's very humble of you to say that. What has been your path to where you are now?
I suppose for starters, I was a rainbow baby. I arrived after 4 miscarriages myself, so I had an understanding of that into a veterinary and pharmacy household. So the whole medical thing was huge. And then I became a nurse and a midwife, and I then totally lost the plot and started doing reflexology and all of these wonderful bodywork things, and people started getting pregnant. And in fact, there was a warning out about me in my office in Donnybrook years ago. It was like, don't go to her because you'll get pregnant. So it took, because I'm a really quick off the ball here. It took, I'd say, about 2 or 3 years to kind of realize, there are people who need help getting pregnant. So then it was a sense of, layering it up with psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, because I'm a bit of a speed merchant. And it's like, okay, let's get the information, let's get the physicality, let's get rid of any mental blocks, and let's get people, having their babies. So also, because of the miscarriage thing, which is rife after, IVF, which is a great treatment when it's warranted, but you do have a high rate of miscarriage and, pregnancy loss, and it is tough.
Yeah.
So I learned to do EMDR, which is trauma release. It is for PTSD.
EMDR.
Yes.
Okay.
It has a horrendous name because it's American. In England, it's just eye movement therapy. But in the States, it's eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing. There you go. All it means is that, when you're asleep and you might have seen your other half or kids sleeping, and at some stage under their closed lids, you see their eyeballs moving. Yeah. And that means they are in rapid eye movement sleep. Really, really imaginative names going on here. And that means you're processing. So all you've learned during the day goes from short-term memory, hopefully, up into long-term memory. That's why kids really need sleep at nighttime. And also any emotional issues you've had during the day, they're usually diffused, processed while you sleep. Now, when you sleep, you get hopefully your 7-8 hours. Nature has a system that you'll get for the first 4 sleep cycles, which are 90 minutes long. You'll get maybe 5 minutes of REM sleep, which is minimal, because it's all about bodily repair, so that if something comes knocking on the cave door, you can get up and fight and run away.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of hardwired from the past. And it is in the latter parts of sleep cycles that you get maybe up to 20 minutes of REM sleep, which improves your focus, your clarity of mind, your well-being. It clears the decks emotionally and mentally. And you can replicate this by getting someone's eyes moving.
Wow.
And you can then target in, if there is a hangover effect from a trauma, say, a shunt, and you got a fright, you've been shunted, and it's kind of like, oh my God, every time you see a car behind you, you're kind of, going into that. So you can process that by kind of like running a little video in your mind, visualizing it while doing the eye movement, or bilateral tapping, or using sounds. You can use, there's so many things you can use, but it's kind of nice to keep it simple. And I will use this, actually with kids from the age of about 8, if they're being bullied, or mum and dad are splitting up, or, the dog has died and there's, sadness and trauma, we diffuse it. People who've had personal attack or rape, where you do not need, as you would in counselling, to have somebody telling and retelling the story and embedding it further. What you need to do is have it processed visually, pre-verbally, so that the memory, yes, it's filed away, but that emotion attached to it has been drained away. So with fertility issues, there is trauma, perhaps with a small t, not a big T, but it is traumatic. Miscarriage is very traumatic. Any pregnancy loss, I don't like the word miscarriage. When you think of it, it sounds careless. It's like an error. All of that. Pregnancy loss, whether it is in the first couple of days after conception has happened, or whether it is far, far later in a pregnancy, it is still momentous for not just the woman, certainly for her, it's her body, for the guy, for her partner, it's huge as well. And we often neglect that. So being able to use a very gentle, very effective, very, very brief therapy. And I mean, I do this on Zoom, and it could be 15, 20 minutes. And people will feel that ease, that lift, that release. And it's not dramatic that they're in floods of tears or anything. They've done the processing. It's intense, but really easy to do. So that's really how I did all of this. I left a perfectly pensionable job. I was actually managing a medical supply shop. I was involved with prosthetics, breast prosthetics, in the centre of Dublin, loving it. And I was doing sales and loving it. But this just kind of called out to me, and I've been doing it ever since. And I really had imagined that, the idea of fertility coaching, giving people information, what'll work best, what they could consider, what they can try, what they need to be cognizant of, even best clinics to go for them, the best fit, all of those kind of things. I had imagined naively that I would be done in about 4 or 5 years. And I'm still,
here we are.
I'm busier than ever.
You really are, yeah, because I've seen you on, you're working on a documentary at the moment for TV. You've been in the papers, national papers, been on the national radio. Now you're here, so thank you.
Exactly.
But thank you so much. But you touched on something there, Helena, when we were outside, actually, and about the man's role. And I don't mean to be selfish, but I am interested to learn about this. When I was chatting, the 3 of us, me, you and Rachel, chatting outside with Alfie, we talked about the process when women go in to get assessed for their fertility, and what the traditional process is compared to what it could be, i.e. incorporating the man. Would you mind explaining what you meant by that?
I suppose my basic tenet is that I feel guys are the Cinderellas of fertility. And I use the word fertility or fertility issues. I don't really like to talk about infertility, because generally speaking, we have issues with subfertility. And we always focus on the women because it's kind of like, well, she's going to get pregnant. And we forget that the guy is 50% of the equation. A sperm is 50% of that DNA.
Yeah.
It's vitally important. Strong, healthy DNA that is carried to the site, the fallopian tubes, in a timely manner. It's kind of logistics. And fertility is a marker. It's part of general health. And in fact, for guys, it's really interesting. I study this because I just love finding out more. I did an MA in ethics and bioethics, and I concentrated on guys' experience and treatment and investigation, and really they're under-investigated. So right from the get-go, a couple deciding to start a family, and it's kind of like, okay, we stop the pill. Happy days. We have loads of free-range sex. Brilliant.
Free range sex?
Free range sex.
What does that mean?
It just means you can have sex anywhere, anytime, and you've no contraception going on. And it's kind of really exciting, really fun for the first while, right? Okay. And you can never have... human beings are really not very fertile at all. I mean, a normal couple, say, under the age of 35 or 32, in actual fact, will have about a 21% chance per month of conceiving with full, free and furious sex. Okay?
Furious.
Well, just interesting.
That's an interesting word, actually. That's an interesting word because I actually want to ask you about that. But
because, people are inclined, I find, to perhaps consider that baby-making sex is different to regular sex. It's less playful. It's much less erotic. And it's, the fertile window, which is a time prior to ovulation when you are building up sperm in the system and capacitating it and getting it ready for conception to happen. And people forget there's a whole rest of the month when normal relationships, healthy, lovely, fun-free, useful, bonding type of sex is very much, part of the relationship too. And you get very focused on ovulation predictor kits and all kinds of stuff. That's fair enough. It gives an indication. And people don't realize that, sex on the day of ovulation isn't necessarily the best. The sperm haven't had a chance to be capacitated. The acrosome, the head, it's a little bit like, a motorcycle courier arriving up to the reception desk. They're always asked to remove the helmet. Oh, it's kind of like, hello, how are you? Same with sperm. The acrosome is a marvelous thing. That kind of needs to be softened. So literally softened up for penetration of the egg is really important. And I think, getting the pillars of health in place, you need to be healthy and strong to conceive, to have a healthy baby. And that's what you're looking for. A little baby that grows well, stays the course of a pregnancy, arrives with fully developed lungs, capable of breathing, feeding, sleeping, growing, and being enchanting and charming. And I speak as someone who's just developed a brand new granddaughter.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely thrilled. So that sense of, eating well, sleeping well, exercising, fresh air, good moods, and any kind of mental blocks being, dealt with, any fears or phobias. And the guys really need to follow that as well. They need to be on the same page, that it's not just, it's a woman thing. Then if layering up to, say, a next stage, the sense of, okay, we have been trying, and that's a terrible thing as well, trying to conceive. It sounds like it's really hard work. And it can get to that. And that's where I normally step in. I'd love to be at the front loading. When people are releasing doves and they've got, little sweetie treats, this whole wedding business.
Yeah.
I'd love to be in it's not happening now, the EUH wedding. And it's like, okay, are you interested in having children? Now you can start doing stuff and being aware of stuff and cleaning up your act a little bit and getting ready for pregnancy. And then if it is a thing that, people have been trying for a year, we usually say a year under 35, 6 months over 35. I actually say, listen, if you've been trying, well and generously for 6 months, you need to be opening your eyes and just, feeling out a little bit. Can we be doing a little bit of this? Can we be doing a little bit of that? What might be blocking us from conceiving?
Yeah.
So then if people are going, the next step would be heading to the GP. But I would say you should be doing that anyway. A full blood count. Recently I recommended that to intended parents, as we call them, and the guy hadn't been anywhere near anyone. He'd produced a semen sample in a clinic, and it was like, oh yes, you've got swimmers, aren't you a clever boy? And yeah, fair enough, yeah, great, well done you. Ooh. But he went back to his GP for his 50 quid, which is still exorbitant, and had a full blood count, and he's got hemochromatosis, which is a very common in our Irish population. It's an excess of iron, actually just iron in the blood, which seriously affects fertility. So if that had been ruled out at the very beginning, when he was in his teens, when he was having another, checkup at any stage, it would have saved him at least, 7 or 8 grand with a failed IVF. So, getting your ducks in a row and layering it up from a solid foundation makes time sense, heart sense, because you're not kind of, stressed and miserable, and financial sense as well. And the work I do is mind, body related. So, I work with Dr. Ali Domar's work from the 70s, from Boston, and it is very much about recruiting the mind and the body to be fully healthy, fully free. And research has shown that that approach can double the IVF odds of success, which again makes so much sense from so many angles, because even, with IVF mums, and we're beginning to realize dads and, postnatal anxiety, postnatal depression, they're at increased risk of these. And it's very sad. When you have the baby you have wanted for so long, everything may have gone well and you feel like crap. And then you feel bad for feeling like crap and you feel like a bad parent. And it mushrooms and escalates. It's miserable for everyone. So to obviate that I feel I'm front-loading fertility, front-loading a good 4th trimester, as we call it, and beyond. And I think, the male angle, as you were saying originally there, Kevin, is very, very important to vector in, age, profile, health, weight, lifestyle, sleep is massive. And, kind of the whole COVID thing, up late watching movies, good old Netflix, that is detrimental to spermatogenesis. And, that's kind of where I come into the equation there.
Maybe, as you referenced, that people are becoming, or we are becoming, too calculated with it. And as you said, the whole thing of trying to have a baby, like what with myself and Rach, we stopped contraception in November last year, and I think we had sex like once, and she got pregnant basically. But I've always been really conscious of my health, and I mean from a holistic point of view. So, when you came to my house today, I was outside in the sun because I'm not an expert in this area, or I don't know much about it, but from just what I've read, I try to do certain things that I feel are going to keep to remind my body that it's alive. To see sunlight, to be outside, to do physical work. Even though I'm at a computer a lot, I like to, whether it's like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, playing football, and even when I'm out, say I go running, I'll imagine that someone's chasing me, and I think your imagination is so important.
Yes.
And I feel like, and I could be completely wrong here, but I'm stimulating that fight or flight response, and I'm like, I'm awakening the inner animal, as it were. And I obviously I won't go into detail about my sex life, but I feel like when you're in a relationship, it's so important that you have that. Obviously, like caring, that trust, but then you can also remind yourself that you are an animal or you can be animalistic if you need to. And that sounds like a weird thing to say and maybe a bit perverted, but I think that goes back to what we said before we hit record, is the whole thing of shame and people to feel like I can't be really expressive in front of my partner and without being judged. So I'm just wondering, for men, is there like certain principles they should follow that would make them more fertile, do you think?
I think you've encapsulated it beautifully
Have I?
there. Congratulations on your imminent arrival.
Thank you.
And Rachel just looks wonderful, really healthy, strong, fit and calm. It's just lovely to see it. It brings out the midwife in me. So
That's great.
I'd like to deliver it you. We still have time.
Yeah, I know.
So, I do think... that sense of having real sex, raw sex, because as I said earlier, getting into this thing of kind of very nice, we're married now, we're hitched, we're in a relationship, so it becomes nicer, and we're trying to conceive, so, oh my goodness me, we can't do anything dirty or sort of, very exciting. And that, it's very sad. And there was a survey done a good few years ago now in the UK, and people are very honest about sex. I'm not sure if it would have worked as well here, but it was really interesting because the one regret 75 to 85-year-olds had, you'd imagine, well, I never climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and gosh, I could have raised millions for charity. No. It's like, I never had enough great sex when I could have. And it's like, yes, I love it. So, that feeling that it is, it's part of your relationship. When a relationship's working well, you'd kind of say it's 10% of the function. When it's not working, it'll grow to 90%. It's huge. It's a massive loss. And in this country, we have one of the highest rates of the purchase of sex from professional sex workers. So
really?
That tells a tale in itself.
Wow.
Of kind of very nice relationships, people very happy, very content, very fraternal relationships. And that rawness, that physicality, that expression is vital. And, it is part of a family life. Sometimes people are kind of saying, gosh, there's a baby. I can't have sex with a baby aboard. And it's kind of like, oh, yeah, I can. And, if somebody's up for it, it can actually help with onset of labour. And, another area that I'm really, really focused on as well, because as a UK trained midwife, you go from preconception right the way through till at least 6 weeks. So this is, and beyond if necessary. So it's a really broad spectrum of, I suppose, actual expertise and serious training in it and experience in it. And the rehabilitation to sexual practice is vital. It starts with pelvic floor, The
Kegels?
No, forget Kegels. Kegels are absolutely... They exercise a tiny area of musculature. Talk to Deborah from PhysioFit Fusion. Okay. You'll have to give her a link because she is so switched on. In France, when you have a baby, no more than about a week or so later, you have somebody peering into your vagina and beginning to literally take you in hand, you might say, to rehabilitate. And this is all done on their NHS. Okay, wow. They believe that a healthy, happy woman with a good pelvic floor will get back to sex and have a good relationship with her partner. She won't be leaking and dribbling for the rest of her life and have, tenna lady moments. She won't be...
What does that mean, tenna lady moments?
These are special pads for urinary incontinence, for stress incontinence, like or other kinds. Like a pad.
Always.
A pad.
Like that.
Yes, always, those kind of things. But women amongst the they joke about, tenna lady moment.
Oh, right.
Because the adverts are kind of in the afternoon telly, along with Viking River cruises type of thing.
So you just, I get
so
you.
It's that kind of thing, donkey starving and so on. So the kind of feeling of getting that pelvic floor really back so that sex is enjoyable. And, that is really, really important. And, it's possible, but there are very few physios who are trained in this French method. And Kegels, German, marvellous idea, standing in front, doing your washing up like a 1950s, a little leg pop and squeeze. That is, it causes, like hypertension in one group of muscles, and the others are lax and slack. And then you think, I've done them wrong. So it's another kind of rod to beat you over the back with. So rehabilitation is very important. And it means a second pregnancy is much easier than it might have been otherwise. So it feeds into it. And as you said there about looking after your health, you're lovely and lean. I mean, if I were looking at you in the sense of a racehorse, because I come from a veterinary background, I'm inclined to look at people and it's kind of like, okay, what's the conformation? What's the, the layout? What's the musculature? How much extra adipose tissue is there that isn't such a great idea? And, you're lean, you're fit, your posture is good. You obviously like, your fresh air, your vitamin D. And in this country, we lack vitamin D. We get very little of it. And we need, the received wisdom now is bare arms, 20 minutes. And that is absolute bullshit. You need 3 hours, full body, no screening. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody goes out and burns because we're very fair, so it needs to be done carefully, but we need an awful lot more to get that synthesis. We're using cholesterol, so I always imagine that it's burning up my excess cholesterol, and then it has 2 processes to go to. It has to go to the liver, and then it has to go to the kidneys. So it's quite a biochemical. I mean, we are a factory, really. So getting enough sunshine when we can, or taking the supplements, which aren't amazing. You will get it a little bit in dairy, you get a little bit in mushrooms. It's quite hard to pick up the vitamin D. The sunshine really is our best. We can store some, and that's kind of the idea of storing it over winter time. But the other thing about the light, and I was really interested the way you guys were out there with the dog, and it was, it's a beautiful morning, is that the light enters your eyes and it stimulates the pituitary gland, which is the leader of the endocrine orchestra, it's the conductor.
Yeah.
And that stimulates, the axis of testes or ovaries. Testes and ovaries are analogous to each other. And you get the adrenals as well. Like the interplay is so integrative. It's so, one thing really depends on another. So getting the fresh air, appreciating the light, leaving off the shades.
Yes,
we're all wearing, because I love them. They hide a multitude. It's like,
they look cool.
You look much better with sun specs on. I know that. And now that you can get prescription ones, like, hello, that's fantastic. So getting out in fresh air, walking, doing bilateral movements, running, calms your mind. That goes back to the EMDR, left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain. It's very calming, and creative stuff comes up. So getting to sleep at a decent hour and getting your 7 or 8 hours is really useful. Having a little downtime, a little bit of meditation, excellent. So it's a healthy lifestyle, because I think we need to remember you're becoming a parent, and you want to be able to stand on the sidelines cheering in the pissing rain, or you want to be able to hike up a mountain, or play endless board games on rainy days, or whatever it is you need to do. You want to enjoy your kids. You want to have the strength and the energy. And I suppose a caveat that guys really do need to know is that a basic semen analysis, you've got sperm, they're swimming, and they kind of look okay, their shape is okay. That is a snapshot. It's like a quick little selfie. And I mean, how many selfies do you ever keep and publish or do anything? No. If there is a delay, you really need to be moving on to getting a DNA fragmentation. To find out, is there some gene deletions? Is there something that's predisposing to miscarriage? And the guys have a huge impact on the pregnancy. The way you think, okay, I've done my bit, she's pregnant, and I'll see you again in 9 months. The duration of the pregnancy, high blood pressure, and the things like autism spectrum disorders are linked with the father's age, which is related to the number of deletions and changes and alterations in sperm replicating over time. So maintaining basic health can actually have your sperm younger than your chronological age.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's funny what you said. So firstly, I never wear sunscreen. I don't wear shades. Whenever the sun is out, my neighbours take the mick at me sometimes, because I'll go out with just my shorts on, just like running on the street barefoot, just shorts. Even if it's like 13 degrees, as the sun is out, I get the kit off. And part of me is a bit self-conscious to be like, God, like I'm nearly 40 and I'm kind of running with just my shorts. But another part of me, I remember a while ago, I seen some lad, he must have been like 70, long grey hair, and running in just his shorts in the park though. And I said to Rach, I want to be like that. He looked phenomenal, just because the way I understood it is he has chosen to like not get old, quote unquote, to not behave old or not to behave himself. He's still like an animal, this guy. And I didn't want to stop him because he was running, but I did think to myself, that is the kind of person I want to be when I'm 70, not, oh, because I'm now this age, whether it's 40, 50, 60, 70, I should behave in this way. I should like, and and also in terms of your mind with being with a partner, to keep having fun. Like me and Rach, we play a lot. We wrestle around and stuff. Even though she's pregnant, we do a little bit of gentle wrestling, and it may sound a bit weird, but I'm not. I look after Rach because I'm very conscious of making sure she feels okay, but also not to allow her to express herself. She does yoga every day, and she hasn't. And I want to be very delicate because I'm not female and I don't understand what the females go through when they are pregnant. But I want to. I feel like Rachel has, and maybe it's some of it's genetics, but she's chosen to be like, I'm going to be active every day. I'm going to swim every day. Now I know other women have different challenges, and that can't be helped. But maybe that has helped her, as you said, now 9 months to look and feel so healthy, and also stress. We keep our stress down as best we can. So just because I've been selfish to talk about men a lot, and I should talk about women a little bit more. When it comes to actually conceiving, what are the options then? So you mentioned obviously we have IVF, we have natural, and the other one was EDMF. Or was that wasn't actual?
No, that's a part of what I do for people who are having issues. It's one of the treatments I use that's very swift and gentle to help clear mental blocks or fears or things from the past.
Yeah.
And that, people, I usually get a thing, I just feel lighter in myself. I feel happy and, kind of like, whoa, things that were dragging me down. It helps with perspective. And certainly, I think the natural approach you mentioned there, and everybody, it's kind of like a binary thing. It's either do it naturally or go for IVF. Now, IVF is regarded as the holy grail and the silver bullet. It's a wonderful treatment. It's helped so many people have children. It was designed originally for people with blocked fallopian tubes, probably due to STIs. And that's something else that people should have regular STI checkups. Just before you stop using condoms together, go and have an STI checkup. It's just part of your general health.
Yeah.
And if you're going for IVF, you have to have one anyway. And you see people kind of sitting there and it's like, well, we're only doing this because like we're just doing IVF and we're totally clean and healthy and we're not, STIs happen. When the time kids start messing around, you get chlamydia back, forth, all over the place. They're symptomless. And the interesting thing is that at stages you can have a quick course. Now, I know we don't like to use antibiotics, but sometimes there is a place for them. So that's part of general health. There is an in-between. There is medical fertility treatment. And that means you are involved in it. And if there are deficits in your hormones, that is being replaced. So it's kind of tailored for you in a way that in an IVF clinic, you get a protocol. It's like, oh, you're on protocol A, this is it, and you take it, and it's, a little bit hit and miss. The difference between a natural chances per month, you are talking 21% naturally, and about 23%, 24% max with IVF. That's one cycle. Doing it naturally, you've 13 cycles a year. With IVF, you can do at about $7,000 realistically per cycle. You can do 4 or 5 a year. Now, you may get frozen eggs, that's slightly less. But if you do the math, as they all say nowadays, I can't, I won't. Not my forte. But it adds up to an awful lot of expense. And you really do have to consider that by the time you hit 45 and you've had so many failed cycles or whatever, and you've no money in the bank, and, your chance of buying a house or having savings or compared to your peers, it is an issue and it puts a massive strain on a relationship. So the medical approach is interesting. It does involve meds. It does involve tracking your cycle. And every woman should know, it's like the Maya Angelou poem. Every woman should have a black lacy bra and a cordless drill. And, you know, this poem goes on and on, a good friend and this, and it's a brilliant poem.
Okay.
And every woman should know what her cycle is. Now, if you're on the pill, your cycle isn't a cycle. It's just a breakthrough bleed. Your cycle without any contraception, apart from barrier methods. The length of it, the duration of it, the length of bleeding time, the quality, the consistency, all of the parameters, have it kind of mapped. Because if you're having regular cycles, more than likely you are ovulating. You need to be ovulating a healthy egg, a matured egg, to have conception take place. And that's what the tests do. So with a medical approach, you get tests to see, are you ovulating? You'll get scans and blood tests, and you're tracked to see, okay, what's happening here? Are there deficits? Can we fill them in? Can we get your head straight? Can we improve your diet? Can we help you shed a few pounds? And that's where I come in. I'm the ancillary to that, in the sense of, okay, it's like redrawing. You know, guys of 34, 5, 6, and you kind of ask the, you know, female partners, they're usually the person I see, and it's like himself. Well, that's what we call guys here. How's himself? Like, is he whatever? Oh yeah, well he used to, yes. Does he exercise? Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah, he does. He used to train, but he hasn't trained. He hasn't done football training in 3 or 4 years. Do you have takeaways? What do you like eating? Well, we'd have a couple every week. And, you know, the pernicious Chinese ones, which really and truly, you know, not a source of nutrients, as you know. And the sense of really simple changes. Getting himself out to work off that belly that he does not need. Shedding that few pounds means he sleeps better, he's not snoring as much, he's getting more oxygen to his brain. And, you know, you can be part of it. So then you can feel really proactive and you can be really excited. Oh my goodness me, my trousers are looser, my jeans are fitting better, I've more energy, we're having more sex. And I always have an ulterior motive. It's like more sex, get pregnant faster, and iron out any glitches. So then, you know, with the medical fertility treatment, and we might put a link to that as well, because very few people are aware of it. You are proactive, you're both on the same page, you're involved, you're progressing. And if there is a thing that, and something that came up in the questions that I got from Instagram was, you know, I might have endometriosis. So I'd say to women, pain with periods isn't normal. It's ridiculously common. It shouldn't be. It can be a strong indicator of endometriosis, which is a tissue that is very similar, but not identical necessarily, to the tissue that lines the uterus that causes bleeding each month. And that can be found around the ovaries, around the outside of the tubes, in the gut, around the outside of the uterus, in a myriad places. It does that inflaming thing and bleeding thing and causes adhesions and that incredible pain. Now, there is relatively new treatment for it. It's not permanent, but it can lead to someone having a time space for getting pregnant, and it's excision surgery. Before they used to do ablation, which is kind of rub it out a bit, whereas now they're actually doing through, you know, keyhole surgery. It was still major surgery, sore enough after it, but it kind of roots it out, and then they can, you know, get rid of some adhesions that have been clumping bits of tissue together. And, you know, if somebody has painful periods, if somebody has PCOS, polycystic ovaries, that they are each month a lot of follicles, which are the little beauty parlors of the ovaries. So imagine a Saturday morning, you know, the hair and beauty being done, really noisy, lovely places. But imagine if you've too many clients, too many pods, and nobody's getting the full proper treatment. So the eggs aren't being matured properly. So you get loads of them. You'll get weight gain is, you know, excess androgens, excess facial hair, body hair. You'll get different grades of it. And that can be treated. It can be managed medically. So you're improving your chances all the time. So even if you do need to go and have IVF or decide you're going to do it, you're in a much better place to be successful quickly. Yeah.
Interesting. Actually, on that, let's address the questions from Instagram, you know, because we had some good ones. So I have two here. I'm not going to, people obviously gave their names, but I'm not going to give the names just because it's not really necessary and it might be confidential. So one question was, what are, let me make that actual question. This is actually, before I ask this question, my granny, my mum's mum, she had her first child when she was 35.
Yeah.
Right. She had her last child when she was 47. She had 11 children. One passed away in childbirth. So is that, I mean, maybe they didn't have contraceptions, therefore they're having more babies, but is it more difficult to conceive now than it was 100 years ago?
I suppose for starters, our soils are depleted. So our nutrients are lower. We're much more indoors based. Like long ago, guys would be outdoors in fields or whatever, getting plenty of light. They were leaner. If you look at pictures from, soldiers of the First World War,
yeah,
they were scrawny, lean, very lean faces. Now guys are much more inclined to be plubbier, as I call it, just carrying extra, softer.
Yeah.
And their muscles are gym muscles as opposed to work muscles. Their testosterone levels may be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are changes. We're drinking more, we're eating more calories, we're eating more sugar. So they're all available to us. And as primates, as animals, we love sweet things. And, everything that you see that's processed or low fat has extra sugar in. So, yeah, I think fertility levels are declining. Studies show that right unequivocally across the board. We are generally leaving it later. It's a lovely story about your granny because, the age thing, 35. And I have seen first-time pregnancies, and it's actually amazing. 42, 43, 44, and 45. This would be in somebody who is fairly lean and fit, and actually, the sense they're looking and seeming younger than their chronological years.
Yeah.
So it's not somebody who's carrying a lot of weight. Weight is, there's a lot of stored fat around the internal organs as well as externally. And the fat cells, when you see an abdomen cut open, the fat cells are beautiful. They're yellow, they're most gorgeous shade of yellow. It's like bottle sunshine, But the thing is that they're active. We kind of think they're just compartmented away and it's like grand. They're active. They're causing biochemical reactions in the body, inflammation. That's the issue with it. It's not being mean and saying, oh, no, you must. And sometimes people who are beautifully, comfortably upholstered have the most beautiful babies and have it delivered, people who are carrying extra weight. So it's kind of luck of the draw there. But there are many things that have changed in the last 60 years. We are exposed to, look at the amount of equipment, the amount of rays. I mean, I tried to remember to put my phone outside my bedroom at night time. But, kind of checking. And the latest, research only got about 3 days ago, Kevin, showing that guys who have phones, tablets, TVs in their rooms at night time, you're out of the woods now. The spermatogenesis is definitely affected.
In their bedroom?
In their bedrooms.
Okay, right, okay.
In their bedrooms.
And I'm thinking you put your phone in your pocket, which is next to your testicles.
Your crown jewels.
Crown jewels. And that is, signals are coming from space through your testicles into the phone. We don't. That is something that you just. I suppose
we didn't have that long ago.
No,
so.
it's only that's only the last 20 years.
Cooking. It was always potatoes, cabbage, bacon from the farm type of thing. So now, our food has travelled. It's come from depleted soils.
Yeah.
With the best will in the world, our soil is not as nutrient dense as it used to be. So our food can't be. We're eating more processed food. We're, eating more takeaway. So, all of those things kind of add up. So I don't mean to be the fertility police. And I do have objections to people. It's like, you can't eat dairy. You can't touch gluten, grain stuff. And it's kind of like, you've got to, or you can't have a bit of chocolate. Now, if you like chocolate, I personally hate the stuff, which had its own issues as well, because, you're a woman, you're meant to like chocolate. But the sense of being able to, if you have a sensitivity, and in Ireland we have a high rate of gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivity, and celiac disease. There's different layers, it's like a spectrum. So having some tests done, and I think having them repeated maybe a year or so later to see, are you still intolerant? Has your gut healed up or whatever is going on? And not just doing a blanket ban. And the other thing I would say as well, just going back to sex, it's something that crops up regularly. And I often get very, very sort of delighted messages from male partners. The wanking ban. A lot of people believe that, guys must never masturbate if they're trying to conceive, that they will, use up the good stuff. And, I recently, one guy, it had been 3 years since he'd actually had a wank. And bless him, he's so good and they've been through so very much. So I really would like to get the message out that nature is really thrifty. So that ejaculate, as it's called, is usually quite dilute. And it's clearing the pipes, and it's necessary, and it's really, really good. And as a part of a relationship, it's fine. So just to be aware of that. And the other thing I would say is that frequent sex and not, posted on the fridge. The common scenario when people are trying to conceive or they've been through IVF is they're both sitting up in bed with the phones. She's on Insta. He's listening to BBC News or CNN or something really vital. And it's like 10:30, and it's like, we need to do this deed. And it's kind of like, okay, so they do. And 7.5 minutes later, she's back on Instagram. He's catching up on the latest round of whatever. It's very soulless. And, the fun, the play. You were talking about play, and that really intrigued me, Kevin, because, the play factor is massive for human beings, for primates. If you look at, we are primates. We need to play, we need to have fun, we need to let off steam, we need to try things on, we need to rehearse things, we need to get stuff out of our system. We need to just be. And this business of being adults, doing adulting, and being very serious. And I think there's always part of us that feels a little bit like an imposter.
Yeah.
I hope that everybody who's listening to this feels about 18 or 22 inside and getting away with being an adult and the kind of lunacy or whatever. That's really important because you're ready to have kids and you need to interact with the tiniest little baby. I know the faces and the stuff, and you need to go with that. You need to be down. You need to be playing with them. That develops them neurologically. It's to their benefit. It socializes them. It engages them. It calms them. It gives them a freedom.
But that's fascinating, and it makes so much sense. And I think a lot of us know this to be true, but we just forget it maybe. The challenge with modern life is that I want to have 3 or 4 kids, but I couldn't. At the moment, I could not afford that. In theory, because I just don't have enough money. But then I think about my mum's mum, and they grew up. They were from a farm. They didn't have any running water. They didn't. The mum had to bake her own bread. And my mum actually said the other day, she goes, "Your granny's never been to a shop." I said, "Excuse me," and it turns out she had been to a shop, but it was like a weird thing for her to go to a shop because they did everything on the land themselves. The father, her husband, would go out and again he would do physical work and he'd be outdoors a lot. So what was saying there about modern life is that we've become so busy now because we feel like if we're busier we're going to get more money to support these kids, but then because we're so busy we don't make time to be quiet and to play. So what me and Rachel do, and this is not a conscious, well maybe it is a conscious thing, but we watch a lot of comedies, a lot of stand-up comedies, and thank God for comedy, by the way, especially in these times, because people take themselves way too seriously. I think we all do sometimes. And when you laugh together as a couple, it's an aphrodisiac. Am I saying that word right? Aphrodisiac. Yeah. And it's like to laugh is to be like a child and to kind of be irresponsible, especially when you're laughing at something that's a bit naughty. And doing that really bonds you together, as opposed to 6 months ago, I would have been thinking, well, it's 7 p.m. and I still got a bit of work to do, and I'll stop working at 8 p.m. And I would therefore almost, and we've had this, I probably shouldn't say too much, but we've had this in our relationship, I'm sure all couples do, is you start to think like, I'll fit this in here, there, whatever. Now I've decided consciously to accept that I'm going to earn less money than I could potentially earn, and instead invite more time in my life to play and to not be overwhelmed and to be spontaneous and to go away, you know, on a night away here, a night away there, whatever, as opposed to how much can I gather in terms of money. But yeah, that's I think that is the dilemma that a lot of people in there think, I want to relax, have loads of sex and be an animal and get outside loads, but yet I have my phone and I could work all the time and therefore make money, and I need money for kids. So I suppose that's my dilemma, but I'm being quite selfish here. I should ask people the questions for the people.
It's interesting because you've brought up something that's really dear to my heart. And, you know, I've personally lived through incredibly sad times, and humour and the stand-up has been absolutely wonderful. I think to be able to laugh, and certainly working as a nurse where life and death are very close together, as a midwife, and seeing, you know, we had such gallows humour, black humour, and you had to blow off steam. And we forget as adults that, you know, laughing like a drain about something is a real tension buster.
Yeah.
And it's vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I found that you go to funerals in Ireland and like afterwards you do the wake and stuff, which is a bit weird, I think, but afterwards everyone's having a right laugh and they're taking a piss out of the person that died in a respectful way. But that is that release, that humour that we really need. But I am conscious of the people ask the questions.
Of course.
So just on one of the
I may have covered a lot of them actually.
True, very true. But in case you
Somebody asked about what herbal tea should they drink to get pregnant, and it's kind of like right, maybe that comes from that to tone the uterus, and studies do not back this in any way, shape or form, that drinking raspberry leaf tea might help at that stage. And it's very pleasant and it's not going to do any harm. But really and truly, everything that we've spoken about, drinking a tea, it would be kind of like, well, maybe cutting down on the caffeine is a seriously good idea.
Okay.
So, you know, the cups of coffee during a day. Okay, have the breakfast one, you know, the one that gets you going. But for the rest of the day, ease off it, have a weaker coffee. And the same with my beloved Barry's tea. I'm fueled by the stuff, but I'm past all that now, so I'm allowed.
Yeah, the again, like you were saying, the raspberry leaf thing. I think maybe from a what's the word when it's
Placebo.
Yes, thank you. Placebo. It has a placebo effect, which is great. But what I've realised I brought up today is I feel like I've been selfish asking about men, but I think that a lot of the time, as you referred to this earlier, but like you give the sperm and it's like, right, I've done my job. But men, we got a responsibility to remember that you know, our dads, well, depending on how your background is, but my dad, workman, you know, like labourer, his dad farmer, generations of farmers. Before that they were hunter-gatherers, and then all of a sudden I'm in artificial light at a computer, not exploring my inner animal. And there's actually a big of a movement about this in Ireland. Shout out to Jodie Kennedy and people like that who are doing these men's circles. I did this are you familiar with this?
No,
So
I'm not really interested.
Women's circles are very big, but Jodie Kennedy, he really was doing a men's circle where I went myself. Great experience, very physically demanding. So what we did is we all like wrestled for a start on the beach. So barefoot wrestling, it was very cold, we were wrestling with each other. Then we picked up rocks, and it sounds pretty daft, but we carried the rocks up a big hill. You could call it a mountain maybe. But then what we did is, if you were exhausted from carrying the rock, you'd pass it to the man next to you, and he'd carry it and do it together. We got to the top, then we did a group meditation, and we did some breathing exercises and did like a kind of group hug. And I felt elated. I felt like, it sounds probably a bit weird, but it was a really spiritual experience for me. I know that word gets banded around a lot, but I was thinking, I felt like I was connecting to my ancestors, you know, like I'm here because they chose to survive. And they went through difficult times. Like if you look at, I mean, my ancestors are Irish, so therefore, what did they experience at the hands of the English in terms of the famine? But yet, I'm here because they either ran away from something or towards something, or they picked something up or whatever. And when you said about gym muscles versus work muscles, going to the gym and being like, 1 rep, 2 rep, or even going to a yoga class and just going through the motions, that's not going to cut it as far as I'm concerned. I want to feel like I'm doing something almost like my life depends on it. And that keeps you, that's is it the dolce vita? That's the spice of life.
Yes,
you know?
indeed. The reality of it, living it. And that's ultimate mindfulness as opposed to Mac mindfulness. That you're really in it, you're really doing. And I love the way you said there about running, as if someone's chasing you.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting the heart rate up, you're blowing off your adrenaline. That's the time for it.
Yeah.
Then you can come back and create and do and engage.
Yeah.
You know,
and if you're a fella, if you're on the couch or on the fence about working out, work out and then have sex with your missus, and you will like put in the best shift you've ever put in your life.
Yeah.
You really,
and the testosterone levels
through the roof.
Yeah, and that's, you know, the sense of I'll say to somebody, half joking, wholly in earnest, you know, after a football match when a guy's team has won, that, you know, having sex at unusual times, first thing in the morning, testosterone levels are high. And, you know yourself, when you wake up in the morning, it can be lazy sex. It doesn't always have to be rose petals up to the four-poster bed.
That never happens.
Not every time, you know, kind of, oh, so lovely. Place for that too if you're into it.
Yeah,
but the sense of
opportunistic
sex, the quickies are underestimated. They really are underestimated. And a lot of my work, well, not a lot, but, you know, certainly a percentage is sex therapy. I don't mention it too terribly much because it's in the context of this, but erectile dysfunction is a massive thing for guys when they're on the clock once a month. Premature ejaculation is another one. So we work through that maybe 2 sessions, 3 sessions. It's kind of like, oh, wow. But the sense of, you know, being able to, you know, the one question that came up, what sexual position is best for conceiving a boy or a girl or getting pregnant in the first place? And it's like, oh yes, let me share with you that magical secret. Oh, let me tell you, the magical secret about the best position for having sex to get pregnant is...
Drum roll.
Whatever one you happen to be in. So you can get on your reverse cowgirl, happy days. You can, you know, do anything. You can do the Moscow position.
What's that?
The Moscow position is one you may never have tried because, you know, you live in an affluent area.
Do I? Oh, right.
Well,
okay, go on.
You do. But the sense of, you know, the crowded flats in Moscow were intergenerational, you know, lots of family living there, no privacy. And they were very stingy in the hallways and stairs. There was no lighting. So what you would do with your partner is you'd head off to a staircase and guy would be on a lower step, woman up, and you could have sex in the dim lighting, standing up.
Ah.
And
so you carrying her like kind of legs around the waist?
Oh God, nothing as fancy as that. Just literally standing on the stairs, and you can work it out
yourself. She's facing
yourself.
away from you.
Yeah.
Then. Okay, makes sense.
And you know the sense of
you need a handrail behind.
You have because you've got the banisters.
Yeah, there you go.
You're all sorted.
Because you don't want to slip on the stairs.
And it's like, how many people have ever had sex in the stairs? And it's like, christen every room in your house at least once. Okay, maybe the attic if you have no flooring, it's like a health risk and everything climbing into the attic. But the kind of feeling that there is no sexual position. And in fact, boringly enough, and I wish it wasn't so, but studies show the missionary position is fine.
Oh, really?
It's grand.
Yeah.
It's grand. Get you there. But it really, you know, it is, and I do think, you know, keeping the fun and the vitality and stretching yourself, because, you know, I like to help people by saying, imagine, you know, you have your 2 kids and you never know who's sleeping in what bed, when, how, for how long, or what's happening in your household. It's, you know, it's a rotating system. Seeing your partner is something you kind of do in shifts, perhaps. And it's wonderful and it's lovely and you find your own way. But imagine building up your bank of memories now. You've got the whole gaff to yourself. You've the means, motive and opportunity to have outrageous sex at weird times of the day. Why not use that and build that bank? And there's no point looking back in 10 years' time thinking, well, I never did X, Y, Z, or we never explored that because I was a bit embarrassed, or I didn't think he'd go for it, or whatever way it is. So it's kind of like use it or lose it. And that's another thing that, you know, kind of as the years go by and things change, you really need to keep a vibrant sex life or it goes. Well, that's very sad.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was that question.
Yeah,
answered rather lengthily.
Yeah, but brilliantly. So the other question was, because I got two of them, was what are the health risks with getting pregnant later around the age 35?
I suppose the risks, again, are, as I say, with chromosomal abnormalities, there's an increased risk. And the major risk that we fail to factor in is the actual pregnancy itself. Gestational diabetes, raised blood pressure, premature labour, low birth weight, all of those kind of things can be increased. And there again, somebody who's lean and fit and healthy and active and eating and sleeping and doing everything that you want a new baby to do, you kind of need to continue yourself. Do you know what I mean? And you'll be setting habits in your kids. So it's not really, you don't suddenly, like, I think Kirsty also got an awful lot of bad press, bless her, because she said, fertility falling off a cliff at 35 for women. It's not that suddenly you hit 35 and whoomp, it's gone. It's kind of an indication. And the same for guys. We kind of think of Rod Stewart and Picasso. What do they have in common? They had kids into their 80s or 70s or something. And we kind of raise a weary, cynical eyebrow and think, really?
And they both hated wearing clothes.
Yes.
They like to get their kit off quite a lot.
Yes. Air. And that's another thing, actually. Ventilation. The kilt. Bring back the kilt. If you kilt for the cold, worn in the traditional manner, mind you. I'm not sure if Prince Charles manages, does he?
No, I doubt it. But actually, saying that, older ladies, like not older, but like 35, would there be, you referenced it before we start recording, maybe get yourself a younger man?
It's a way, yeah. Getting a very fit, healthy bloke. And it's the age of the couple, and it's a shared pathology. You might have a little bit on her eggs mightn't be as completely singing and dancing. His sperm mightn't be amazingly great. They might have a little bit of weight. They might be, set in their ways type of thing. So you need to realize that it's a shared issue. As a couple, you are what we call a dyad. That is a unit. Yeah. So you need to really focus on both. And you can't either ignore the guys or let them off the hook. Yeah. It needs to be both. So, sometimes it is an interesting thing that a much younger guy, you'll have a pregnancy. Also, the other fact, of course, there is that a lot of people have been together for a very long time before they even consider having kids. So nature likes variety. Now, with the best will in the world and signing up for life, I know we're into kind of choppy waters here, but the sense of, the Christmas party.
Yeah.
I mean, I have delivered babies. I was down in a military and naval town down in Plymouth training, so you can imagine the variety, spice of life down there was eye-opening. And, kind of September time after the Christmas party, people wondering what their child was going to look like, basically what shade their child would be. And it's like, whew, got away with that one. Wow. It's very easy to get pregnant with a brand new partner.
Why is that? Just you're excited and...
Because it is a completely different set of chromosomes.
Yeah, a different gene pool.
It's different, and nature wants a fresh one. Another father to support that one, another father to support the other one, type of thing.
Don't tell Rach this.
It's absolutely, I mean, really, it's so against our very modern... conjoining for life, or kind of single relationship thing, monogamy. Is
that why then it's a good idea, to like spice things up by kind of dressing up or whatever? What I'm saying is like put role playing or whatever to be like, all right, I'm a pirate or whatever, and
keep going.
No, dig this hole. Therefore your partner's like, oh, you trick her in her mind to thinking.
No, you actually have the lining of the uterus. That's fun. That's great. That's enlivening. It's a great idea. We'll never look at a pirate in the same way. But the sense of the hook, the patch. Sorry, I can't get off.
I was thinking more Johnny Depp.
Ooh, right. Well, now you're on the right path. But the sense that the lining of the uterus has an immune layer, or some immune cells, some white cells, And they can become kind of, hyper vigilant. It's like we're getting the same in here all the time, right?
God.
We'd like a bit of variety. So that is why at one stage, actually, there was a thing called condom therapy. And it was recommended. And it's not a bad thing. There is a rationale to use condoms for maybe 2 or 3 months. And then when you start it back up again and be like, oh, hello, we have something new here.
Interesting.
Oh, it is a very cheap way. I mean, worth doing because it costs nothing and you're still able to have sex with your partner. So, there is. So any more questions there now?
Well, that was, I got 2 questions.
You got
that
2.
was done.
Okay, so my ones
yeah.
were about endo. They were about medical fertility. And they were about other things.
That's my dog scratching at the
Oh,
door.
bless,
So 1 second.
bless,
1 second.
bless.
1 second. That was the dog barking. Sorry, your other ones were?
Again, about endometriosis, PCOS, is IVF the only way? And do you need to have a HSG if you've got endometriosis? And I would say, if somebody thinks that tubes are blocked and just wants to visualize, are the tubes functioning well? Is everything clear? Is there any mass, any fibroids in the uterine cavity? Yeah, well, you know more then. And to bear in mind that fallopian tubes are muscles. Now, they're about a quarter the size of my little finger, and they're the most stunningly beautiful things. One of my favorite bits of anatomy, actually. They're kind of translucent, like a walkway between 2 beautiful buildings, right? And they're really active and busy because that's where fertilization takes place. And they are nourishing the sperm, grooming them before the fertilization happens. And then they have all these cilia wafting down the little conceptus, the tiny, tiny embryo. So they're really busy places. And they can go into spasm. So or else they can get blocked with mucus. A bit kind of like, well, your nose gets blocked.
Yeah.
So they can be cleared. So that is why exercise and diet and relaxation, taking time to have a bath. Most people now, it's shower. But the benefits of baths and Epsom salts baths and just chilling and getting your magnesium levels up, massive.
Yeah.
So, I think we really did cover all the questions in the chat.
We
and
did.
Again, if anybody wants to, follow up on that.
It's your Facebook moment.
Oh, right.
You
Thank you. So, I'm on Instagram and, I answer questions there, I do some videos, and I do also a brief, maybe 5-10 minute free discovery call. Someone else, a quick chat about, I'm wondering about this. Should we be doing that? What's our next step? I'm here. I, as you know, love talking about fertility. And I love seeing people pregnant and babies arriving. And that's what I'm all about.
Well, Helena, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So once again, your handle on Instagram is?
I'm at Helena Tubridy.
Yeah. And then on Facebook?
On Facebook, not so terribly much, but still Helena Tubridy.
Okay.
And on Twitter.
Yeah.
And that's where the @fertility expert came in.
There you go. That's the one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening or for watching. I hope you enjoyed that episode and that chat. Got a little bit spicy, had a bit of a laugh, which I think is important. If you did enjoy it, please like, share, subscribe, share with a friend, maybe tell a friend. And I hope if you have any suggestions for guests that you'd like to see on or hear on, please let me know. You can reach out to me, hello@kevinboyleyoga.ie. Thanks so much again, and I'll catch up with you next week.